Hello, Zooms. G-Town, Anil. Welcome to CryptoTown. Welcome to New York.
Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, 100%, man.
Long time in the making.
Yes, sir. We've been trying to do this for like almost a year now.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sorry I had to bail on that first episode. We couldn't make it work.
Yeah, all good, man. All good. Yeah, as I was telling you, right? So like I'm excited to onboard you as citizen number 26, right? Where we're building this town of all these sharp minds, much smarter than me, much sharper than me, right? Trying to shape the future of crypto, right? And like the core motive, right? The core motive of this podcast is that all these people who are building in crypto, right? Founders, operators, investors, everyone, right? I'm trying to get out of that back bias, right? The circle jerk that crypto Twitter has become,
course,
right?
yeah.
And like actually share down the wisdom and the experiences that we've all been to, right? My favorite Anil lore is when we were in Singapore last year and you ended up like performing with Diplo, right? Like tell us, how did that happen first of all?
Yeah. So, obviously a lot of, crypto Twitter and friends in crypto know I DJ. Always been like a big music fan, and like honestly it's probably what's powered me to like work really hard, just because like I listen to sets, listen to music, love finding music, always have been. First startup in college was actually like this music blog called like Soko Vibe, funny enough, that I don't think most people in crypto even know of. But like our claim to fame back then was like we shot a music video for Childish Gambino, which was really cool. Really funny enough, how I got into DJing though was through crypto. So funny enough, we during the NFT mania, we bought a couple of the Delphi founders and we bought this basically NFT, this Zuma's here, nice. This NFT for Disclosure, which got us and 4 friends VIP access to like any show of theirs going forward. Paid a bunch of money for like 140 grand. That's also my PFP, funny enough. I don't know if a lot of people know that lore.
Nice.
So yeah, we bought this Disclosure face and essentially became really good friends with Disclosure, a guy, ended up throwing a bunch of parties with them for Delphi that I'm sure a lot of people know of. And through that, becoming good friends with him, I would always send him songs before like we would go see him or something like that. I'm like, hey, try out this. And he's like, hey man, you're already doing the hard part, which is like finding the music. You should just start getting into DJing. So one day he actually just sent me, hey, these are the things that you need to start learning on and to be like a DJ. And essentially anytime I saw or hung out with him afterwards, he just would always show me a few ropes, show me a few things. And that's how I started learning how to DJ. Through that, back in 2021, Delphi consulting was very big for obviously DeFi protocols, but we became well known for a lot of these big brands and artists, and we didn't love working with them because I think in crypto, like working with crypto people is so easy. You can kind of like, one, close the deal in like a week, but also just like do all the work via Telegram, whereas we've done a lot of like Forbes 500 consulting in our day, and those are always the worst because like they want pilot programs that you do like 4 months of like calls before they close like, something that's like 1/10 of like what a crypto deal would be. But we answered some of these calls because we ended up being able to like meet a lot of cool people. Like, one of my founders, Kevin, and I were able to like hop on a call with like Jay-Z at one point and like meet some really cool people. Through that, became good friends with Diplo, and yeah, honestly helped him get this gig in Singapore. He knows I DJ, so he was like, hey, let's DJ together, and yeah, the rest is history.
Dude,
so
that's
that was really cool. Yeah,
I'll probably put up a video right here of
nice.
him of
Yeah,
DJing.
sick, awesome, damn, nice. You took videos, I remember that, yeah.
Before we talk about your story, let's introduce him on the pod.
Yeah, of course. This is Zuma. He's 10 months old. My wife and I got him like last year, and yeah, he's been mostly a good boy, but sometimes he's a bad boy, as I'm sure he will be on this pod and be super annoying. This is his first pod that he's doing, and probably the last because he's gonna annoy the fuck out of me, but we'll see what's up.
All good, man.
Yeah,
all good.
already ruined the pants. Love it, Zooms.
Awesome, dude. So let's get into it, right? So you were a finance major, right? After that, you spent some time at Bloomberg, you spent some time at Deutsche doing leverage trading, right? After that, you took the leap of faith and you started Delphi, right? And how the story started, the lore of Delphi, right? Like, I feel a lot of people probably know about this now, but you basically ran up 1 million of like credit card loans into what you're handling right now is like $600-700 million in aid, right? Before we dive into all of this, who is Anil and what's his story?
Nice, yeah, very broad question. Yeah, essentially like, I always was, growing up, my dad got me very interested in like numbers and finance. We always, like, I remember seeing like the first Apple presentation and, me, even as a kid being like, oh, the iPhone's cool, but like, is this the right thing for like Apple to do? And my dad having like long discussions about it, my dad being super bullish Apple and everything like that. And it just showed me that business was kind of like something that could impact billions of people's lives and is the most scalable way to do not just one thing. I was in between computer science and finance when I was going to college, and I think like because of that, business and finance was just the way that I thought I could scale like my impact on the world and people en masse. Fell down the finance rabbit hole basically just because like that was what I wanted to major in, and got really excited about the promise of like being in the bank, being able to help provide funding and like financing for like big companies that everyday people would like interact with and not really realize like their stories or how they came to be and what problems they were facing and trying to solve. As well as like my long-term goal was always to get into venture capital, because if anyone who knows me, even if you don't know me and see my Twitter and stuff, I'm like a permeable, very optimistic on the world, and I think like I think everyone should be, to be honest. I don't think like bears ever get, or ever right, really.
Yeah.
But really, like once I started working at Bloomberg and Deutsche Bank, very quickly I realized that I hated the corporate life. I hated my ideas not being judged by their merits, but by like how long I had been at the company. At Deutsche Bank, I thought I was doing something really interesting. I wasn't doing leverage trading, by the way. I was doing like leverage finance, which like, somewhat similar in terminology, I guess. But like, a lot of it was, what I thought was interesting was like looking at companies that were going through hard times and how to like help fix them. That was maybe 20% of the job. 80% of the job was like understanding these like insane systems that Deutsche Bank had. They had like 16 different systems that didn't talk to each other, politics with like old people. And I just didn't love that part of the job. And I probably got a little bit demotivated early on in my Deutsche Bank career. That's when, fortunately, fell down the crypto rabbit hole with my other best friends who, obviously have become, co-founders of Delphi with me. And we honestly saw this brave new world that we could build this like financial system from the ground up right when we were at, a bulge bracket, a dying German bank, like
right.
at a bulge bracket. And so it was like the perfect like timeline where, was getting demotivated on like the route that I had studied and spent all my life chasing, and then realizing that like a lot of that skill set could still be applied to this whole new industry that needed skill sets like ours.
How did you find crypto?
Find crypto? Yeah, so that's also a really good story. I don't know, I'm sure I've told it, but maybe not on a pod. But essentially, one of our other co-founders, Medio MJ, he and I and Jan all lived together. We were roommates. We lived together for like 10 years, so we were like best friends, worked at Bloomberg and Deutsche Bank together. My whole career, like my whole professional life has been with these two guys by my side. Essentially, on my birthday in 2017, we were on a FaceTime with one of our like old, I guess still fraternity brothers. And we were just figuring out like what we're gonna do, go out or something, go day drinking or something like that. And he was like making fun of one of his roommates. He's like, hey, like our friend Paul isn't gonna come because he's like, buying some fake like Bitcoin scam. Yeah. And we're like, oh, like fake Bitcoin. He's like, yeah, it's like a new Bitcoin. And we're like, oh, like, I didn't think anything of it at that point, but my roommate MJ was like, oh, like, what is it? Like, and he's like, oh, it's called like Ethereum. And didn't think anything of it. We just made fun of this guy a little bit more. Yeah. And then I went out to dinner with my family who came into the city to like see us. And at this point, my family was very close to Jan and MJ. They had known him for a while. So they're like, hey, we got a cake. Like, let's go cut it with Jan and MJ. And so they come up. And basically, as soon as I entered the door, I remember just seeing like MJ's face. And like, he's not a rude person at all. But like, he kind of like wanted my parents to leave, basically. He was just like jumping up and down. Yeah. So we cut this cake, whatever, my parents leave. And then as soon as the door closed, I'm just like, yo, Anil, come into my room. Yeah. We go into his room and he's on, ETH Trader on Reddit and stuff. And he's showing me like the Ethereum white paper and he's explaining like, he's like, yo, I think there's something here. Like, I think you're gonna really fucking like it. And we basically spent that whole night just doing nothing but talking about and figuring, and we had no idea what it really was, but all we could see from that night one was just that this was a technology that could create all new business models that you could never think of before, right? The thesis of smart contracts and all this. And to be honest, that was, like basically 8 years ago at this point, and that was the first night that I went to sleep thinking about crypto, and the last night I didn't, So it's been nuts.
And after this first night, how long did it take you to sort of like switch from Deutsche completely and go full-time into Delphi?
Yeah, great question. So my birthday is May 2017, May 5th, 2017 was when we found crypto. Essentially, we bought crypto basically that night, but very little bit. I think ETH was at like $60 or something like that. And we bought it, and then over the next week or two, it just kept going up, and we're like, wow, we're really fucking good at this. This is obviously, as soon as you get into the game and you see something going up, it makes you even want to research it more. Yeah. And so we were diving in, learning about it, joining Slack channels, being on Twitter and everything like this, creating group chats with our friends about it. And basically we by the end of that year, you know, that was when it was that huge bubble and this huge ICO run up and everything like that. We got a lot of people within Deutsche Bank interested. Even like my MD, which I don't know if, you know, I mean, there's no one at Deutsche Bank that's watching this, but like he definitely does not want people to know that. And so our goal was to leave Deutsche Bank in the beginning, in Q1 of 2018, right after our bonuses, and just like use that money to start up a research firm was the goal. Mostly because one, we were using that process a lot where we were trying to find alpha, trying to find good things to invest in, but there was like, everything was sporadic, everything was very fragmented. There was no one actually doing good research in the space. Like if you wrote like a message that was like more than 5 bullet points, it was like the best research in crypto at that point. And obviously we had spent a lot of time doing research at Bloomberg, so we thought we could kind of like actually move the needle and do something, you know, that could, you know, help the industry. Essentially in Q1, when we were supposed to leave, something unfortunately happened. Myself and the other founders, we all got addicted to Fortnite. So Fortnite ended up delaying the start of Delphi by like 4 or 5 months because we all got addicted to it. We started playing it every night. You know, we were supposed to like working on reports and stuff to like prove out the thesis, have the structure of the reports, work on the site. Just didn't do any of that, just ended up playing Fortnite a bunch. Got addicted, and by the way, like by the end of like the 3-4 months, when we were like basically winning every game we were playing, we were like, all right, we've dominated this, now we should go back to thinking about Delphi. And also, the timeline worked out well because like we got addicted to Fortnite right after the top, so we were like, hey, this is gonna go down for a little while probably. We didn't know how down it was gonna go and how long that bear was gonna last. But we knew we were convicted enough that, you know, this market would return in some way, shape, and form. And so in August of 2018, we finally, you know, left Deutsche Bank and started Delphi.
So August 2018.
August 2018,
Got it.
August 8th.
So when a founder today comes to you and when he pitches to you, right, and he's a Fortnite addict, do you consider that bearish or bullish?
Super bullish. I think, I mean, obviously Delphi has been very kind of deep in gaming. We have a whole gaming team. I think gaming is like one of the best ways to tell how addicted someone's personality is and how addicted they are to winning and how they can think through, you know, not just mechanism design, but like think through strategy choices very quickly. So yeah, I think like being a good gamer is not the only thing that is relevant to being a founder, but like, you know, very often some of the best gamers make good founders.
Right. All right, so this is 2018, August, you started Delphi. Initially, what was your focus? Was it investments? Was it research? What was it?
Yeah, it was all research, honestly. For us, I think we thought we understood it well, but we wanted to get deeper and deeper. And we had this thesis that fundamentals were going to matter. And again, in 2018, no one was thinking this other than Multicoin, who was one of our first customers, as well as the Hashed. You know, I always shout at those guys out because they were the only 2 people who paid for us, even though we pretended like a lot of people paid for us and then like gave out our research away for free. But essentially, you know, our first report ever was on Bitcoin. We dropped that in December 2018. And essentially we were like, hey, we need to cover Bitcoin because it's obviously the biggest asset. And if Bitcoin doesn't go up, we don't think anything else will get attention. So, you know, Bitcoin had dropped from $6,000 to $3,000 at this point. So we thought we were going to nail the bottom. And, you know, that report is kind of like legendary and something that we hold very dear to our hearts because we now have like this 60-page amazing state of Bitcoin report that we dropped at when Bitcoin was like 3,100, and now obviously it looks, you know, pretty legendary. Our second report was on Ethereum, which I remember was pretty funny because twofold, it got people very mad at us very early on, even though our Bitcoin report got people very like in love with us and we're like, oh, this is like obviously objectively one of the best Bitcoin reports ever written because we obviously put a lot of time into it, and it was written in a way that you could hand it to anyone on Wall Street and they could kind of take it seriously.
Was that always your focus, the Wall Street?
Yeah, we wanted to bridge the gap because, like, you know, we had come from that world that we knew that's where the capital was, and we actually thought there was something that a lot of people on Wall Street would find sexy about this stuff that wasn't being communicated to them in the right way. And so we thought we could really bridge that gap. Although, to be honest, you know, as we dove down that rabbit hole, we realized it would take very long, and we honestly ended up like just loving the crypto native, like, and DJing nature of things. So obviously over time, and I'm sure as people have seen, Delphi has just gotten way in the other direction of like, hey, instead of waiting for the institutions to catch up, we're just gonna lead the charge. We're gonna be as deep as we can in this thing, and like eventually they're gonna find their way here. And you know, hopefully they will end up reading Delphi research, but we're not gonna make beginner content. We wanna make the deepest possible content for the people who are here now.
Right.
So that was a shift, but yeah, when we first started, the goal was to bridge that gap.
So August 2018, research focus, when was it that the lab spun out? When was it when the investments arm spun out?
Yeah, so essentially, again, because we only had those 2 customers on the research side, we were not paying any bills. And, you know, because we had quit middle of the year, we were quickly running out of our savings.
Right.
So essentially, the way that we bootstrapped ourselves, because we never really raised money, was like we essentially just did consulting. So I think we are definitely one of, but maybe potentially the first company to ever get paid by a DAO by Kane and Synthetics back in February 2019. And essentially, like what we had done there is we were writing a lot of deep research reports about these protocols, and you know, Kane and the team reached out and they're like, hey, you understand synthetics better than anyone, and we also have a lot of work. We need people to help with risk management, etc., like figuring out incentive design and everything like that. So that's when they were, came to us and actually helped, fund us, like paid us for an engagement where we started consulting. Then we ended up working with like Aave, transitioned them from Ethlen to Aave, work with like projects like Balancer, Compound, Lido, etc. And honestly, that's how consulting really grew. And that's where Labs ended up being like something that we ended up launching.
Right.
Before Labs started though, Ventures was started, which, you know, I've told this story a million times, so I don't want to like go into it too much. But, you know, we did have an anchor investor who ended up bailing on us, who ended up levering up on credit cards and ended up investing. But yeah, the goal was always to invest. So we knew that like, you know, we could build expertise, build a brand, build credibility. The goal was to use that to like, you know, raise money, because we really didn't have any money at that point. But then, you know, obviously things changed and we had to like create our own way. But yeah, I mean, I think the way that we think about Delphi at large is every one of these divisions has come out of something that we've seen as a gap in the market. So obviously research was the first, and now you obviously have a bunch of different research providers that are all doing great work. I think for us, we also saw a big gap in the venture fund market where we didn't think funds were being value add enough, and that was our first MO for Delphi, was create the most value add fund in crypto. And then Labs was basically like, hey, with these 2 kind of different perspectives, we think we can also build very hard things that maybe people don't want to take risk on, where we may now have capital and the time and energy to be able to build in these verticals. So yeah, it's all come out of, you know, what we say is like duty calls, and we'll like try and answer in some way, shape, and form. And yeah, that's like how we got here.
Got it. Let's dive into all these 3 verticals and like their focus, right? Because you said that venture was always like the mandate, right? So let's begin with that, right? When it comes to Delphi investing, right, walk me through the IC process of it. Right from, let's say that a founder has cold DM'd you. First of all, do you guys look at your cold DMs? Do you guys only accept like intros? What is the process there? How does someone
100%.
reach out to the investment
I always
team?
get in trouble for this, because I have been on pods and say, hey, I always answer my cold DMs and stuff and everything like that, and I really do try to, but now with the Twitter fluff and everything like that, it's become way unmanageable. Although I do check periodically for sure.
Tommy shipped an AI bot for this, right?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I'll get into that. That's definitely, yeah, I love that Tom did that, and it's been really cool to see that evolve. But yeah, essentially, you know, if someone cold DMs me and stuff, especially if someone intros, that's obviously like very good like reference check, right?
Yeah.
Like being an intro for someone that we trust. We'll basically, you know, we have a big research team as well as a big investing team, and the investing team also has their own like niches that they focus on, whether it's infra, DeFi, you know, gaming, etc. If someone sends me or refers me a project that I think might be interesting or comes from someone who could be a really interesting founder, I'll funnel that into one of the analysts or associates that I think is most relevant. Sometimes even a partner if, you know, say Jan's very excited about, say, gambling or like certain types of games and stuff like that, I'll kind of like loop someone from the ventures team in. And essentially what happens then is they'll take a call, hopefully have like an AI note taker at this point, but usually take notes. And essentially after that, draft like a draft investment committee memo that goes into our pre-ICs, which are actually today, Tuesdays. From then you kind of get some like sentiment or some idea of 1, if people are interested in it, 2, what questions they have, and then 3, just like, all right, we got to go do a lot of reference checks, as many reference checks as possible. Eventually, if it does pass the pre-IC process and make it to the investment committee process, we are probably one of the slower crypto funds. And this changes for, I guess, crypto funds. Some crypto funds end up being longer during bear markets and shorten in bull markets. We're definitely one of the slower ones during bull markets, because we have a minimum 2 to 3 week investment committee process, where 1 week, the ventures team will bring in the project, introduce it to all the partners and the whole committee. We'll talk about the project, try and poke holes into it, but obviously the ventures team has an incentive for that to pass, so they're bullish. They're gonna be bullish that they're bringing it and spending that much time on it, and they wanna earn carry on it, right? Then what we do is after the week 2 is usually bring in, it's sometimes lopsided, but like depending on the founder's availability, we'll bring in the founder. and the founder will present to us and we'll be able to ask questions, everything like that. And obviously within that week, we've done a lot more due diligence, a lot more work, get close to the sector, talk to references, etc. Then the last step is, and sometimes it flip-flops with the founder, again, is basically we bring the relevant research analyst on that know that sector or know that mechanism or something like that. And obviously, unlike the ventures team who has that incentive, that carry incentive, they have the opposite incentive. They just want to search for the truth. So they come in and just poke holes in our thesis or anything like that. And if we can kind of get alignment, and even if sometimes the research team maybe disagrees, but myself and the partners feel like the thesis is strong or the founder is strong, can figure out the things that maybe the research team is poking holes in, we'll back that team. So yeah, it's a fun process. It obviously it changes. It's kind of like bespoke, but that is, to me, is like the perfect process for a Delphi IC.
Got it. So we had Cheyenne from Multicoin on the pod, right? And we discussed about the same things, right? And my conversation with him was that VCs are very much like BDs, right? Because everyone's always like selling something.
Yeah.
With you, I feel that VCs, before BDing, right, they need to research really well, right?
Yeah.
You can't sell something that you already know a lot about, right? We've discussed the art of researching with Misha, Symbiotics founder, with Prabal, Avail's founder, but that's from a very tech point of view.
Yeah.
What I want to discuss with you is the art of researching from an investor's angle, and also try to answer what are some of these holes that founders are missing on right now, right? That you feel that once you've researched, is that, okay, founders are lacking in this right now, they should do this first.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that's changed so much over time. I think back when we first started Delphi and no one cared about fundamentals, it was way easier to actually look at fundamentals because you were kind of not creating it, but you were kind of pioneering the thought process around it. So for example, that's why we kind of got so obsessed with synthetics, because I think what that team did really well was obviously pioneer a lot of this incentive mechanism of using the token to bootstrap liquidity, bootstrap some type of action that they want their community to do. And I think that just set us off because there were so many possibilities with that. And I think you've seen a lot of that kind of play out over the past few years. I'd say again, I think you're asking the right question, which is our research is definitely not academic. It tries to be very on the pulse of the market and actually just why, and I think it's moved more in the past few years, but why should people give a fuck?
Yeah.
And I think that's actually the biggest part of research now that I think our research team cares about, which is the mechanism can be designed so beautifully, but for the mechanism to work out, you kind of need people to be using it. And if people don't give a fuck, then that mechanism never actually gets put into the motion, right? I mean, that flywheel never ever developed. So I think what is interesting for us now, and obviously a lot of what the consulting team thinks about for the projects that we help, is also why should someone care about what you are building? Because right now, as you've seen, especially with things like Pump.Fund, there's fucking so many tokens out there, and there's only so much attention that can kind of go around.
Yeah.
So you're getting this huge fragmentation, and by the way, not only that, but also people's attention spans are getting shorter. So the amount of attention that people could spend in 2018 was way more, and there were way less tokens. Meanwhile, you have way less attention being spent, and you have way more tokens. So you're getting it lopsided, going in the opposite direction. So I think because of that, you really need to and for better or for worse, it also is not a bad thing. I think the market shouldn't have to care about what you build. You have to get the market to care about it. I think the market gets what the market wants, and what the market wants is things to care about. So I think that's one part of the research process that I think if you told me in 2018 we were spending so much time thinking about nowadays, I'd probably be disappointed because it feels more of a marketing gimmick now. But I do think it's the teams work so fucking hard on what they're building, and your engineers are working so fucking hard, and if you're not answering this part of the problem, you're not giving them the best effort. So yeah, I'd say that's one thing that I think teams have no choice but to care about. Zuma's eating something, but yeah, I think that's one thing. Hey Zuma, stop. I'll give you a treat.
One sec, you treat him, I'll just check on the video if it's fine.
Nice.
Yeah.
Zuma.
Yeah, bro, I'll send it to you. Yeah. So what's been happening right now in a lot of these VC markets is also, right, that not a lot of funds have been doing well in the last cycle, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And that forces them to come on to more podcasts or create that artificial clout, right? Because that helps them raise money from different LPs, and essentially a lot of these funds then earn on that management fees, right? Now that puts you in a unique position because since you have a prop capital, all of that is there, right? You don't have to worry about LPs, about raising another fund, right?
Yep.
How do you look at it?
Yeah, for sure. I don't envy these other funds for sure. Obviously, they're playing a different game, which is that management fee game,
right.
Which I think is like very bad. And the thing is, like, you can't, you can go on all these pods and raise social clout and everything, but at the end of the day, you can't hide from your returns, right? Like, anyone who's giving money will be looking at how much you've done, your DPI, everything like that. Yeah, for us, I think it's a blessing and a curse. The blessing is it allows us to actually care about making money and like actually allow us to like invest in projects that we think will impact the space and hopefully bring on, thousands, if not millions of users. So I think that makes us focus on like the needle moving part. The curse, I think, is like, and it's a very small curse, but I do think that like, and I've thought this in the past, is like, I wish we did probably make other people money too, just because like I think at the end of the day, even though since it's been all personal, we never raise money or anything like that, our team, has to do everything by ourselves and like root for ourselves. And, we don't have external people. I mean, obviously we have a community, people like you, friends that like want us to see do well and stuff. But, you don't have people who are constantly shouting from the roofs that like, oh, look how well they did here, look how well they did here, which is fine. We don't care about that game, etc. that much. But I do think it's like, one disadvantage where like if, say, like, Multicoin does great on Solana bet, everyone and their moms hears about it because like their returns will get leaked and everything like that. Yeah. Whereas for us, we don't want that stuff to like get leaked or anything like that either, because at the end of the day, we care about like our own returns. But obviously we work hard for like all the work we do, and I think it's great for like the team, not me and the founders, but like the team that we have to get props, pats on the back and everything like that.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, it just allows us to kind of focus on the work. So yes, it's a very small curse, I'd say, but that's like the maybe downside of it, maybe.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I mean, honestly, I think like one of my favorite aspects about crypto, and I think the future of venture, is instead of people raising these mega funds and everything like that, I think it'll allow more people to like group up with their friends, pool capital together, and out-return the market, outperform a lot of these funds that work way too hard, have to fucking put size into deals, have to hope this thing does really well, and everything like that. So yeah, that's the way we think about it.
There's this one thing about Delphi is that you mentioned somewhere that there are like 88 people right now across all 3 disciplines, and the only way you get exposure to the Delphi fund is that you become an employee, right?
Yeah,
so that everyone grows the pie together, right?
Yeah, 100%. We even, obviously we like to pay out like big cash bonuses and stuff too, but we even try and give, certain people bonuses in the fund, right? Like we'll say, hey, we'll match your bonus and we'll put it in the fund, so now you have upside in here too. Yeah. But yeah, that's one of the beautiful parts of it too. I think it's a great retention mechanic, although I think the biggest retention mechanic for most people is just being access to the Hivemind, access to these other 87 people that have different perspectives and viewpoints that you can learn from.
When it comes to labs, right, like I feel I've seen so many VCs then become like builders themselves, founders, right? And I feel you guys are already doing that side by side with labs. How does labs function, right? I remember you had Astroport and Mars, like huge protocols. So one of my very close friends, he was like a senior dev at Astroport and Mars, Rahul Mitta.
Oh,
he keeps like reminiscing of like his old days, and he keeps telling me like the culture there was awesome, right?
Amazing.
So tell me, how is the labs process like when you're shipping a company, right? How is that different from the venture arm, and like what is the mandate there?
Yeah, it's very different. That's a cool part. Even though we have this like 88-person like Hivemind, every division, every company at Delphi has its own culture. And labs is probably, research is pretty DGen too, but labs is definitely very DGen, but they have to be very long-term thinkers, which I think is like such a good perspective for us to have on the, on the Delphi Hivemind side. Jose and Luke do a really great job of leading labs teams and thinking about things that, are worth spending so much time building, because like, on the building side, you really can't chase like trends and narratives. Once you start building, you have to be focused on that thing for, if not 12 months, longer, right? Years. So that is very different. And I think, one cool part is when we were first just a research firm and we had a lot of these funds as our clients, we thought we had such a good insight of like, all right, I'll grab that after. Yeah, we felt like we had such a good insight on like what was going on in the market. And we're like, oh, like having a fund will give us that much more, insight into what's going on. And then we started a fund, we're like, oh fuck, we were totally blind about this space. The building side is probably the space we're most blind to. Because, and not saying that founders are liars or anything like that, but obviously when you're raising around and stuff, if you're building on XYZ chain, you're gonna say, this is the best chain to build on, it's very easy to build on, I'm gonna build fast, whatever the fuck. And from the building side, we realized a lot of the things that we were being told at surface level that you couldn't really do diligence. Like you had to take a founder or many founders and kind of curate and aggregate kind of that at its word. you basically couldn't take at face value, right?
Right.
So building that expertise in-house was like a game changer for us for sure. Yeah, I think building is something that like even going forward is going to be, especially with AI, is just going to become more and more precipient and top of mind for funds. And I think, going back to what you said earlier, I think, again, I'm super fucking biased, but I think like a lot of funds are going to look like a Delphi model going forward in the next 5-10 years. And we really do think about like what is the next generation of a venture fund look like? And I think, I think A16Z, they obviously get a lot of slack on Twitter and stuff, but like, dude, these guys are legends. Like, they've built something fucking incredible. They've moved the needle for the world. They've invested and helped, build great, like, legendary companies. And I think, like, they obviously pioneered this kind of like media and like service model that people like to make fun of and stuff, but I do think they were onto something. And I think for us, we, got lucky. We didn't like strategize that this was going to be like the evolution of Delphi, but it ended up being this path. And I think like having this like media firm or like content model was very useful for us, mostly from the learning side and obviously the distribution side. And I think the builder thing is something that I think is like less appreciated right now because it's so fucking hard, but I think will be more appreciated, especially as, not that it gets easier to build, but it becomes more accessible to build.
Right. I recently saw that you guys are looking for fund managers, right, as well. And we had Austin from Relay Capital on the pod, and he literally broke down how to analyze tokens and like how do you start a fund from scratch, right? As you know that the motive of CryptoTown is to like help more people like learn more, right? What are 3 things that you would want to pass down to people who are entering the VC space right now or the fund manager space right now to learn especially about crypto?
Yeah, one thing, and I say this to like a lot of my friends that have, approached me to start a fund, is like, don't do it. Yeah. Starting a fund is hard. One cool thing about all these different things that we started at Delphi is like, the one thing it's told us, not that we thought it was going to be easy, but everything is hard.
Yeah.
There's nothing that comes easy. And we've tried all of it. Research, like build a media company, build labs, right? Build and actually invest. Everything is fucking hard. Everything takes a lot of hard work. It takes a village, honestly. And we're super lucky to have built and, attracted like a really strong team because like, myself and the founders couldn't do this by ourselves, but honestly, like even with what we had bit off, I don't think we could have chewed that even like without the team that we built recently. Yeah. So I think like
starting a fund, tell them can they become fund managers who are just starting out? What are your 3 learnings from your experience? Because you jumped the ship and you've learned it yourself firsthand, right?
Yeah, so I mean, the number 1 is don't do it, meaning really think about it. Okay. So that's my first thing. Okay. Like really think about if you want to do this and why you want to do it. Okay. If you want to do it because you want to be known as a fund manager and this is social capital and everything like that, that is a wrong reason to do it. If you want to do it because you really feel like you have edge and there's no other way to capitalize on that edge, that may be the right reason to do it. So I think that's like 1. 2, I think like the second thing I'd say, sorry, this dog is attracting Zuma for sure. But the second thing I'd say, if once you've figured out, hey, this is something I actually want to do and like I think I can do, is like get good help. Whether that's a co-founder that fills in your gaps, because like no fucking person is perfect. I think one thing that Delphi really benefited from is like each of myself and the other founders have our own like superpower per se. And the best thing is, there's obviously some overlap, but a lot of it was very different. Like the things Tom's good at, I'm terrible at. The things I'm good at, Tom's terrible at, and vice versa, right? Find help and find a team that you can get in early, that you can kind of give ownership in, because I think capturing a smaller piece of a much bigger pie is much better than not capturing any pie at all by yourself. So build a good team. It doesn't have to be a big team like Delphi is obviously fucking huge with 88 people, but I think like you can find 1 or 2 co-founders or people who you can bring on. That's I think massive. 3, I think like honestly start writing and start building a reputation, build a brand. Like building a podcast is massive. Writing on Twitter, sharing your content. I think like distribution does matter. Everyone knows distribution is king, obviously, but in crypto, I think it matters even more than any other space. And I think like that's what's going to attract not just deal flow to you, but it's going to attract talent. It's going to help you learn, even if you're wrong, right? Like I think the multi-coin guys, like Kyle's been very public about this. They do it so well where even if he doesn't believe something, he'll put it out there just to get yelled at and find the right answer faster, right? Yeah. I fucking love that. So I think that's like, I think those are the 3 things I'd say.
Right. I don't usually talk about markets, but like I feel the audience is going to kill me if I don't talk about markets with you today, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's euphoric right now. I feel that sense of euphoria slowly coming back. Do you think this is the super cycle that was prophesized by Zusu?
Yeah, so yeah, anyone that knows me, again, I'm a perma bull. Like I literally have never been bearish, so that means I've been wrong a bunch, but I've been right over time. So yeah, I think like what I always tell friends and stuff is like, hey, if you can't sleep at night because you have, look at Zuma standing, I hope the camera gets that too. But if you can't sleep at night because of the exposure you have, first of all, that's pretty cool and I've been there. But two, like, you know, don't do that. Like take enough money off the table or have some money set aside where you can sleep easy at night, especially if you have like a family to provide for, you know, a kid or a wife or, you know, maybe a fucking dog to take care of. First things first, like do that so you can sleep easy at night because then you can make better decisions. But yeah, I'm always bullish. If anything, the only time I get bearish is when everyone is bullish, which it seems like right now. But I do think that like we have some room to run. I do think like, you know, crypto has over time constantly become this macro trade. And I think like long term, the reason why this macro causes like short term volatility is actually very bullish for crypto medium to long term because people are worried about the things that, you know, back in 2018 that we were talking about, like, you know, the debt of the government, money printing and everything like that. We sounded like fucking conspiracy theories. Now like everyone knows about it. Like my sister's a doctor. She doesn't know much about finance or anything like that, but her and her friends are very aware of the debt situation and everything like that, which I think in 2018, even when I was talking to people in finance, they were like, dude, like chill, like let's just look at the S&P or something, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's like something that I think like that's just not going away. For me, like I made this decision basically right when I got into crypto. It's like I'm just gonna be a perma bull because like this chart just looks up and to the right. I don't need to spend time thinking about this anymore,
Yeah.
and that allowed me to focus on everything else.
Right.
And so when people try and time the market and everything like that, man, like that's gonna be a huge headache. I don't think you're gonna do it well, so like just don't do that. So yeah, I'm always fucking bullish. I think Bitcoin's going much higher. On the way there, I'm sure there's gonna be volatility. Obviously, I think ETH, Sol, like all these things. I think ETH is like a great fucking asset. And yeah, I think like stablecoin adoption is just gonna go straight up. So I think like right now, it's like, I know people don't feel it because like there's always something happening and there always will be, but I think it's like the boring part of crypto, which is like, we've already won, now we just need to see the score play out.
Right.
And what I mean by that is like, a lot of the stablecoin adoption, a lot of these corporates coming on chain, etc., they don't work as fast as like these crypto DJing protocols, like I said earlier, with these Fortune 500 companies we work with. They're gonna take time, but they are coming. They're already, you know, we talked to a bunch of them, and you know, we work with a few of them too. These are no longer pilot programs, which I think is like super bullish, and I think people probably don't see from the outside looking in.
Now that we've established that you're a perma bull, right, I'm going to talk about one theme that you're most bullish about, and that is crypto AI. Like, I'm going to assume that is true, right? Delphi has become synonymous with funds who've been investing in crypto AI. Personally, what I am most interested about in crypto AI is that when it comes to like DeFi, right, core DeFi, the education arc is sort of long, right? When it comes to, let's say, like our parents, our grandparents, right, the broader retail audience, for me to explain them DeFi pools, everything, that's going to take some time. But for AI, all of this hard work is being taken care by OpenAI, ChatGPT, Google, Meta, everyone, right? So all that's left right now is like these consumer AI apps that can basically get everyone use crypto for capital formation, right?
Yeah.
So that's my personal stand. What is your thing that you're most bullish on when it comes to crypto AI?
Yeah, well, one thing on your note, because I really like the way you frame that, because you know, I think what you've seen with, you know, all these big companies, Robinhood, et cetera, coming in, it's like, I think you're finally seeing the move from speculation to like people saving money on crypto.
Right.
So I think that is just massive. What that means basically is like, you know, the things that people are doing, the things that people are building may look boring, more boring to the DJing crowd. I think that's like totally fine.
Yeah.
You need that to happen. So I think that's awesome, and I do think AI will play a big role in that, for sure. For me, so yeah, like crypto AI is obviously a sector that like Delphi has like invested, we've backed like over 25 projects in it. We're super excited about a bunch, right? Like decentralized training. Obviously, we were really early to like news research, was just having, you know, dinner with one of the guys, Dylan, last week. Super bullish those guys, and I do think there's this world where, you know, these centralized models, they almost run out of space or the ability to centralize compute, so they're gonna have to depend on decentralized compute to keep scaling, right? So I think that could be crazy, but obviously, you know, News, Prime, all these guys need to figure out like a solution to that, which is fucking super hard. So we'll see what happens. For me, you know, we just launched Delphi Intelligence, which I'm sure we'll talk about too.
Yep.
That is essentially like, we are very focused and excited about not just this intersection of crypto AI, because we do think this is going to converge, but we do think you need to start building a lot of expertise in AI generally.
Yeah.
But our crypto, you know, to focus on the crypto AI side of this question, you know, we were pretty early to this, which again, like the sector has come, gone, whatever the fuck, people might be bearish on it now. I think it's very bad to be bearish. It's gonna come back, like, I think much quicker than people expect.
I'm completely with you on this because I feel we've just like scratched the surface when we saw crypto AI, right? Like we haven't
100%.
seen any of the tech that we were promised, right? The crypto AI that we deserve is yet to come, right?
100%, and I think like crypto AI really had a month or a quarter, October, November, December last year, right? I think what's crazy to think about is like, go back and look at where the models were at that point. Like they've multiplied. And people are throwing crypto AI out the window and thinking that nothing's gonna happen here. That's like the dumbest take. I just don't even entertain that take, honestly. So yeah, I think there is gonna be a lot of useful stuff and a lot of cool stuff built. Where we've invested in, again, like, you know, we have people like Tommy on our team, Ken, you know, Pondering Duran, who's leading our intelligence division. These guys are obviously much fucking deeper than I am. You know, it's way above my pay grade. But like, I think, you know, for me, the way that I, you know, underwrote a lot of the investments we did there was I had zero idea where value was gonna accrue. All I knew was I thought this intersection was gonna be super valuable, and I wanted to back the best teams in this intersection. So whether that was in decentralized trading, whether that was in inference, whether that was in consumer apps, I wanted to back the best founders building in these verticals. So, you know, that's kind of like was my part of the thesis. On that journey, we met a lot of interesting founders that taught me a lot, and they're still teaching me to this day, like, you know, the news guys, obviously. But yeah, I think like, you know, for me, I think that is a vertical that like it pays, you know, pay attention to. And like, you know, you always wanna, everything is consensus in crypto because there's money to be made, so people front run these narratives very quickly. You're not gonna get another Axie because like Axie came and people were like caught off guard, and no one's gonna be caught off guard ever again.
100%.
So when, you know, something like crypto AI is kind of laughed at and scoffed at is actually when you want to be paying attention the most. So I think, you know, there's going to be something there. I, you know, was on Thread Guy last week, and, you know, when I was talking through it, I didn't think about it that much, but like I was talking through it and I was like, oh yeah, like I'm sure next year there's going to be a big wave. And then I kind of like took back my answer. I was like, no, fuck that. Why next year? I think by the end of this year, you're going to see another like resurgence in crypto AI. I hope I'm right. I could be totally wrong. Don't invest, NFA. But yeah, I think momentum and everything changes very quickly. And yeah, people will hop on the bandwagon fucking like that.
No, 100%. Like, it's interesting that you mentioned that at the time you were not sure about where the value accrual is going to happen, because this year...
I'm still not, by the way.
So this year there was the Sequoia Accent program where all these partners come together, and they've been showing stats about how during the cloud and mobile wave, right, like the most value that was accrued was not at the infra level, but at the consumer app level, right? And they predict the same wave to happen with consumer AI apps, right? And honestly, that's why, like, personally, I'm placing like my bets there. And even with like CapEx, that is the focus, right?
100%.
But yeah, Delphi Intelligence, right? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so, yeah, and one thing on the app layer, yeah, like my partner Jose believes that same thesis. So, you know, one thing that we just talked about on Bankless last week was like how we think, a lot of people think like ChatGPT wrappers are like the dumbest investment ever. We kind of disagree. I agree with Jose on this point. I think there's like going to be a lot of value created there just from the customization, going from like, you know, there's an app for that to there's an app for you. And I think ChatGPT wrappers are going to be like a big part of that. But yeah, Delphi Intelligence, you know, we launched this last week. Super excited about it. Essentially, we're running the playbook back in another area that we're interested in. And the way that we built Delphi was this, you know, we just talked about it. We started with research. We're starting with research on the intelligence side, on the AI side. So really, it's a free platform, right? So unlike Delphi Research on the crypto side, which is a subscription, a lot of people subscribe and everything like that, all these funds and stuff. On this, we want to build our credibility. We have no edge right now. Why the fuck would you pay us? It's all free, will be free, and we're just dropping, you know, reports on things that we're interested in and want to learn about. First 2 reports already came out. One was on AI in this like entertainment era, which I think is a little bit more technical because it talks about like how like, you know, the algorithm, the dopamine hits and how that's going to change for AI. I think it's like really interesting. And then the report that I, you know, sorry Paul, I liked even more was Ponderings, which was a video about video generation models, which I think is super cool. Basically TLDR, these things are 2 to 3 years behind text, but that means that you're about to see this huge renaissance, and I think that's going to be, you know, I think that's when people really see the tangible value of these things. Whether it's like, you know, I read this story where there was this couple that went on vacation and they went to the hotel and they said, hey, we want to go to this cable car. And they showed a news video of like this beautiful cable car in the mountains. And they were like, oh, like this hotel has been around for 60 years. Like there's no cable car on this island. They're like, no, like look at this. And they're like, oh yeah, there's no such thing. Like, I don't know. And they're like, but this is a video showing this. Like, it's right there. That's the mountain. And they realized that it was AI generated.
Yeah.
And then the couple wanted to sue the reporter because they're like, this reporter lied to us.
Yeah.
And then they found out that the reporter was AI generated. Then they were like, all right, well, it's the news station. We need to sue the news station.
Yeah.
That news station was AI generated. I think you're going to start seeing the world really wake up to, you know, like us and people in crypto, like, we're somewhat on the cutting edge because we're fucking living terminally online.
Yeah.
You see all this shit. You got to think about like your uncles and stuff. Like, they don't know what's coming, and once they see it, they won't understand it. And I think I think these video generation models are going to bring that to everyone.
100%. Last segment into it is, right? So based off your experience of building Delphi, right?
Yeah.
Keep the labs aside, research aside, investment aside, right? Purely as a builder, right now, you keep interacting with different founders and operators in this space right now, right? What are 3 like pieces of advice that you've learned from your personal experience building Delphi, scaling it to like almost 90 people now, etc., right? What are those 3 pieces of advices that this is like your mental framework?
For founders.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta be obsessed with it, right? Building is so hard. Like, if you're doing this for any reason other than you want to see that thing exist in the world and you think it should and you're the person to bring it to life, you're not gonna be successful. It's just like, that's as simple as it is. You know, whenever, sorry to bring this back to investment committee and stuff, but like, for me, because I'm unpermeable, whenever I do hop on a call with the founder that is building something, I always start from their seat and try and see their perspective and almost try and be blind, right? I don't want to like poke holes. I want to understand, you know, especially in a space like crypto where the opportunity cost is so high, you could be doing so much with your time, your resources, whatever. Why the fuck are you building XYZ? Right? And if you don't have a good answer for that, or if you just think it's a trend that you can make money on, it's the wrong answer, and immediately, like, I don't care, even if it is a cool sector or a cool mechanism that you're designing. Right from there, like, I think like you gotta be obsessed with what you're building. 2, I'd say like, you know, when we started Delphi, we had basically no work-life balance. But the thing is, like, and I always tell people this, is like, even when we were dirt poor and working on this 24/7, that was probably the most fun I've ever had in my life. And that goes back to 1, we were just obsessed with it. We wanted to see it live. You know, I'm a very creative person, obviously, and I really wanted to, you know, it was fun tinkering and bringing this brand to life, having people see this brand and have a meme attached to it. Oh, this is institutional grade research. Oh, now this is a venture fund that is value add. Like, you know, these memes that you kind of attach to it. You got to think in memes, which is another part of that second one. I think like, what is the meme of your company? And are you obsessed with that? Is the big part. The last part is like, you know, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. I think like you owe it to the company. I mean, yeah, everyone knows me as like this, you know, they say I'm like the head hype man, or like, you know, like a big, like, you know, permeable and like the face of and everything like that, and like this extrovert. I do like being private and stuff too, which, you know, I don't have a choice for, but like at the end of the day, I think all the work that the team at Delphi is doing deserves to be kind of broadcasted, deserves to be talked about, deserves to be shared with the world. So I feel that duty to do that, and I think as a founder, what you unfortunately realize is like, if you're really into the engineering, that's not going to be your job if you're successful.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, being a founder is like talking about the story, spreading the lore, spreading the story, getting people hyped about it, both internally, right? Obviously hiring people, getting people excited about the vision, and then getting people externally excited about the vision.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 things I'd say off the top of my head, yeah.
I love that third point, because I remember you telling me once that now in Delphi you don't have a boss, but you feel like you're working for all these 88 people, right?
Yeah,
and it's your responsibility to do this for them.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I love it. I would, you know, I obviously would not work for anyone else, because I've handpicked my bosses, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think at the end of the day, as the founder, like, you work for your company, and yeah, I think like, you know, all of the team are obviously like shareholders, they're all like incentives aligned and everything like that, and so if they do well, that means I've done well.
Yeah.
And if they do poorly, that means I've done poorly.
Yeah, awesome, man, awesome. This was a beautiful conversation,
yeah,
man.
Appreciate
nice
the time,
to have
man.
you here.
Yeah.
Citizen number 26 and dog number 1, man.
Yeah, look at that, Zoom's good boy.
Man.
He was pretty good the whole pod.
Dude, you're such a nice boy. More pods for him.
Yeah, 100%. Now you're going to be brought on. I love it. He starts his own pod. Yeah.
Oh, let's do that. You call it Big Dogs.
Yeah, damn, that's good.